After taking a good break and getting past the 100 subscriber threshold, thank you so much for that by the way, it's now time to enter the final stage of this adventure. Welcome back to Nocturne Fusion when we start climbing the stairway to heaven. Because of my visit to the 5th Kalpa, I realized I wasn't quite strong enough yet, so I decided to do a grinding session, during which the following things happened. First off, Black Frost is learning the Void ailment skills one by one, and soon after I got my hands on Pierce. This will allow any physical skill to always deal full damage against enemies which resist or null them, so long as they don't repel that kind of damage, which is impossible for Almighty, but we'll get to that later. Freykugel. To make room for Pierce, I get rid of Magma Axes. All this was done at the Diet Building, by the way. Next I move to the 5th Kalpa itself. Here Dante gets Bullet Time, an AoE physical skill that costs 10 MP, dealing mid-level damage and causing panic. Queen Mob gets Makara Karn, Wukong drops me a Diamond to trade off, and half an hour after this, I get my hands on a Bench, the most powerful counter skill, giving me a 50% chance to counter a physical attack with a damage output similar to that of a Divine Shot. For this, I sacrifice Bolt Storm. It served me well, but now that I have Pierce and Glacial Blast, I won't need it anymore. Black Frost gets more ailment protection, Shikioji changes Stun Needle into Hamon because the game knew I lacked light attacks. I take a break to go to the jewelry store in Ginza to exchange stone with items, go back to the 5th Kalpa, Dante learns Stinger, a physical almighty attack with a chance of insta-killing demons, then I replace Deathbound with Gaia Rage. Though in hindsight, this was probably a mistake since Deathbound could hit twice, but Gaia Rage hits all enemies for high damage with a solid crit chance, so it's not all bad. And finally, Black Frost finishes his Void Ailment collection. All of this was a full-on 4-hour grinding session, just to be prepared for the upcoming dungeon. Let that sink in for a second since you will see it in the video for just a couple of minutes. Now I can go into the Tower of Kagutsuchi, which is accessible from the obelisk. Keep in mind now that outside and inside the obelisk now there are diet building level of demons like Yurmikala and Dekarabia, so don't let your guard down too much. I make my way to where we saved Mysticao way back when, and now we're at the point of no return. If you come here before the 5th Kalpa is unlocked, you'll lose the chance to clear it. Kagutsuchi sees through us and confirms that we're tainted by Lucifer, and we're inside the tower at last. This place is a labyrinth of doors, elevators, and stairs filled to the brim with some of the strongest demons in the game like Surt. One false move and you're really a goner now. This is where the game really drops all pretenses of kindness if you let your guard down. I am gonna spare you most of the exploration like usual, just know that the first area you will explore has a good chunk of cube elevators and puzzles. As I proceeded, Dante learned his passive skill, Sun's Oath, which will boost all damage dealt by 50%. Fun fact, in the old Chronicles Maniacs version with Raido Kuzunoa, and now in the HD remaster of Nocturne, this booster skill comes with Pierce. But in this specific version of the game, on PS2 with Dante, the Western release of Nocturne, no Pierce for us. But I'll take the extra damage regardless. Also, Glacial Blast here is a godsend. Many enemies here are either weak or don't resist it, so Ice is a solid element to have at this stage. On floor 215, a Shatter recruits itself after giving it a Chakra Drop. Good stats and high physical resistance, but nothing spectacular at this stage of the game. We take the elevator to floor 223, and I prepare for the first of the Reason bosses. I made a team of myself with Komodo on, Dante, Titania, and Wukong, with Black Frost and Shikioji on standby. Since this boss does have strong physical moves. We enter the door and we're ready to face with the goddess Shijima, Ahriman. This fight has two phases, as per usual. In the first one, Ahriman will forbid you from using certain types of moves. A violation of the rule will result in a surefire insta-kill. Because physical attacks are banned at first, I take the first few turns to do the usual buff-debuff work, then start hammering with magic attacks. After a few hits, he forbids magic attacks. Fine by me, it's your funeral, just look at me and Dante. It takes one turn to change rule again, forbidding summoning. This is far from being an issue so long as I don't lose demons, so this is a freebie rule, allowing me to do whatever I want. The next rule is no healing or items allowed. A bit of a bummer to be honest, but I know my demons have resilience to spare by now. Having dealt more than 6,000 damage, Ahriman goes, screw the rules, I have god powers, and decides to fight us on an even field, no gimmicks. This is where the fight usually gets harder. It gains stronger physical attacks in Tentacle, a party-hating move, Dekunda, Dekaja, Megidolon, and his signature move, Apocalypse, which is even stronger than Megidolon. As scary as this sounds, remember this. All buffs and debuffs, when phase 2 starts, are still applied, so you have a chance to hammer down some of its 18,000 HP relatively easily now. I was dreading this fight. So much so that I started using Petrikarn with Wukong here and there. And despite using the Kunda in a couple of turns, I got him to low HP very fast. I think it didn't took more than 3 or 4 turns. And I was prepared to get hit by Apocalypse. Except that he never, ever make that happen. For some weird RNG bug, I would assume, Ahriman decides to spam his normal attack. From here, I finish this fight with style. I won't deny I was legitimately bamboozled there. I never had it happen that he never uses the Apocalypse on me. Whatever. Hikawa has finally given up, and by beating him we get the Earthstone, the first key to reach Kagutsuchi. The next area past Hikawa is one I was waiting for. I managed to recruit at the first enemy encounter a year longer. He knows all 4 magic elements, even if it is weak to all ailments. He will take care of all the enemies weak to electricity, boost my defense, and at level 68 he will get me Diarahin as well. So he's a solid addition if I ever saw one. This stage is a maze, filled with damage dealing floors easily traversable with Liftoma. In one room we find an angel that disappears. This will unlock Ahriman has a replayable bosses in the burial chambers of the Labyrinth of Amala, if you want to do that. Not long after, this is where I finally learn Spiral Viper, and I immediately replace his Divine Shot with it, since this is technically a stronger version. Also, Dante learns Showtime, a high damage almighty attack. This is essentially a Megidola spell, to clarify its power scale. Not Megidola on, Megidola. I run around in circles for like 20 minutes I think, and then I managed to recruit a Rangda. Other than having a nice repel physical attribute, she's the first demon that we can get with Debilitate, arguably the best debuff skill in the game. Dekaja is a nice added bonus too, which justifies me dropping the 3rd Kalpa Arahabaki for her. I finally reached the outer area on floor 322, and we're very close to another Reason fight. And for this one, my team will be slightly different. I've kept the Sophia Magatama to avoid having any elemental weakness, your Longer for magic shielding, and Oberon and Ifrit for elemental coverage. Everything will be clear very soon. We enter the new boss room, and we're now gonna have to face Isamu and his god, Noah. First, this fight is very standard. The boss has no weakness, so why having all 4 elements? Well, you see, Noah has a move called Aurora. When he uses this, he will change all affinities. It will repel all damage except for one of the 4 main elements. Aurora makes Noah cycle through those 4 elements, fire, ice, electricity, and wind, and you can only damage him with the opposite element he's currently using. So use ice if he uses fire, fire when he uses ice, wind if he uses electricity, and electricity if it uses wind. The cycle is fixed, and it will only use fire, ice, electricity, and wind in this order. The key is to keep track and act accordingly. If you plan to cheat with Almighty unless you have peers with a physical Almighty skill, don't. Noah also heavily resists Almighty. I think he has like a 75 or even 90% resistance to that thing. Needless to say, items like the Chakra Elixir are essential, since you'll burn through MP faster than ever. If you wonder why I haven't talked about my own fights so far, it's technically because there's no need to. I follow the cycle, use opposite elements, and heal when necessary. He won't use the Kunda Underkaja in this phase just yet, and he has only single and multi-target version of the elemental spells. After a while, phase 2 comes in, and this is where, again, things should turn out ugly. The overall gist is the same, but it does have an extra move now, Domination, which drains a very high amount of HP and MP from one target. The major problem with this move is that it can usually kill you if buffs and debuffs are not applied, and even more aggravating when its target is the demon who deals damage the next turn. However, much like Harimon and his Apocalypse, no one ever used Domination on me, not even once. It was just a full-on elemental spam with a very sporadic normal attack here and there. I was hoping that when it got to low HP, the AI would pull a reverse Uno card and screw me over, and yet I was disappointed. While I was clearing my mind from bewilderment, Ifrit leveled up and got prominence, probably the best fire magic in the game overall. The defeat of Noah grants us the second key, the Nether Stone. Wanna hear a funny detail? The Noah fight is technically skippable. You can do it later, not right now. Past the elevator, we unlock Noah as a burial chamber boss, and enter the next section. Funny enough, this is like a town. It has all the facilities you need, including the junk shop with the last Magatama, Kailash. I do want it since it has Frey Kugel, but it's very expensive on hard mode and I don't have the money yet, even if I do have 395,000 Maka. So I decide to sell some valuable items, even if I might need them later, to get the last 55,000 Maka I need to buy the 24th Magatama. Here I decide to go a bit further ahead and find myself face to face with Thor once more. Compared to our old fight, he doesn't really change much. He does have the Kunda and the Kaja as well as better moves and stats overall, but the strategy remains overall the same. Hit hard, have an electric or and physical wall, and he will be a piece of cake. Until phase 2, where he will use Dragon Eye and buff up to become even more dangerous using also Focus. Unfortunately for him, I wasn't that weak. Fun fact, there is a way, even though I can do it right now, that allows you to do even a solo fight with Thor without taking a single point of damage. After this fight, I decide to return to the town area and take a little breather. And that's all for this week's video. I won't lie, the whole dungeon was harder than the 2 recent bosses I fought. At least, the demons in the dungeon did get the jump on me and killed me a couple of times even if I didn't show it. They didn't hold back. I didn't consider myself lucky, because I wanted to show you those attacks. But whatever, I guess I got through them. Join me next time as I will take one last detour before clearing the rest of the Tower of Kagutsuchi. This has been Bahama Raven, and until next time, the Hell Gate is once again closed. Have a nice day, and take care.